Heather Nickel, our 7-day challenge, Reinventing You. We're excited. Heather and I are going to start out with a little bit of music because we like to dance.
Yes,
we go, Heather, do this. Let me pause that. Here we go. All right, guys. I'm super excited. We are on the 7-day Reinventing You challenge. I'm your host, Alyssa Sulli, and we are focused on bringing coaches and transformational professionals to help teach you how to create change in your life and really reinvent yourself. And I'm so excited. My good friend today is Heather Nickel, and she is a transformational coach focused on changing lives from those struggling to overcome anxiety. She helps her clients get beyond the roadblocks anxiety creates so they can finally create and achieve the desired outcomes they want, whether it be to find their dream job, build a loving, lasting relationship, or find their passions in life. Having overcome her own debilitating struggle with severe anxiety that was detrimental to her health, it affected her socialization, her sleep, thinking clearly, and being fully present as a mother to her children. Heather now lives without the need for medications and alcohol to calm her nerves and is an active and present mother in her children's lives. She has found joy in living a balanced and peaceful life and now focuses on helping others reinvent themselves through overcoming anxiety so they too can live their life to the fullest. Thank you so much for being on, Heather. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me. I love this opportunity.
Yay. So we want to hear all about your Reinventing You story, what you did to overcome anxiety. What was that experience like for you? What were you struggling with? What does that really look like? Can you dive in and tell us about your anxiety struggles?
Oh, well, that's a big question there. Okay, so where do I start? I have suffered from anxiety my entire life, but it's all that I knew. So I didn't think that there was another way. I thought it was normal to break out in a sweat before you would go into a room, and I break out in hives if I had to meet new people. And I always self-medicated either with food to help me with anxiety or alcohol. And that's what I did in my younger years. And then in my later years, of course, doctors got involved and I was on prescriptions. But really, the transformational point of my life was I was not in a good place with my marriage, a day-to-day life. I was just so caught up in living every day that, I really thought that that's all that this is it, right? This is life. Not what I expected, but, taking care of the kids, getting it done. And my dad was visiting in town, and I was in the kitchen refilling my wine, of course. And my son at the time was 5, and my dad had said something, and I laughed. And my son was like, "What was that noise?" And I was saying, "What noise?" And he said, "That sound you made." And I said, that was me laughing. And it was just hit me like a Mack truck that my son had never heard me laugh before. So it still tears me up. So right then I realized, this has to change. I can't keep showing my kids that this is what life is like, that a mother is always going to put everybody first besides herself, and she's not going to be happy. Yeah. So I decided, you know what? I got to put my mask on first. I got to take care of me. I got to make myself happy so I can be there for my kids, because I was there for my kids. I did all the volunteering, Girl Scout leader. I did it all, but I wasn't really there. I know as a mom, you could probably understand that we're always there, but sometimes we're not there mentally, right? We're on the phones or whatever. So I was like, this has to change. So that was the spot of my catalyst of changing my entire life. And luckily, within changing everything else, I got a grasp on my anxiety and got rid of that as well.
Wow. I just couldn't imagine. I remember you telling me last night and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that that was the point where you really began to shift. Your son had never heard you laugh.
Mm-mm.
That is just amazing. And so what was it that, do you know kind of the root of what stemmed, caused the anxiety? And then what were you doing to really make that change?
Well, the stem of what caused my anxiety and what causes the anxiety with everyone is what we say to ourselves. We have that story going on in our heads and constantly worrying. And I always say worry is a waste of the imagination, because 99% of what we worry about doesn't come true. But yet we sit and with a cycle and think about it and think about it. And at the time, my husband and my daughter had major medical issues. So we were constantly in the hospital and doctors are telling us the worst. And of course, my anxiety was going to keep circling. How are we going to pay our bills? Are my kids going to be okay? Is my husband going to be okay? So it was just, the anxiety was out of control. And the other thing that it stems from is I wasn't staying in the present moment. When you think about the past, you're living in depression because it's no longer there. And when you live in the present moment and you're mindful, then you're at peace. And if you're thinking of the future, you're going to be riddled with anxiety. And that's what I was doing. I was constantly in the future, and I was listening to the stories in my head that weren't true because they hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What a really great point and perspective you gave of recognizing that if we're living in our past and we're living in the future, we're never really here and now. And the anxiety and the pain and the struggles from the past, we're probably reliving in our head, and our fears for the future, not the foresight of joy and excitement. But when we're in an anxiety state, we're in that state of fear and concern. And so we're not really ever present and just coming back to being present. So how do you come to being present, especially when life is chaotic and frustrating and you aren't sure how to how do you even become aware that you need to be present? And then what do you do to stay present?
So that's a really great question. And what people, honestly, with what's going on right now with COVID, I think even people that don't normally have anxiety have anxiety right now.
Yeah.
It's one of the most searched topics at this moment. So when you are out of balance, and it's different signals for different people. And this is what I go over with my clients when I'm coaching them. But for me, I would get a pit in my stomach. And when I got a pit in my stomach, then I knew I was out of balance. And
just to clarify, out of balance is meaning that you're just not being present in life. You're kind of like all over the place. Is that what that means?
Out of balance means something's off. Okay. Because if you are balanced in your emotions, then you should be feeling at peace and at bliss. It's not normal to be irritable. It's not, I shouldn't say normal, but it's not how our bodies were built. We are supposed to be at peace all the time. We're supposed to be feeling pleasure and joy and loving life, even when we're having hardships. It's all about how we look at it. We can stay in peace through being in the hospital, being in debt. Every step of our lives, we have the choice to be at peace. So when I felt either a pit in my stomach or I would start thinking of the things that haven't happened yet, I would check myself. And if I was driving the car, I would just feel my steering wheel. And how does it feel in my hands? It's hard plastic. Where, are there trees around? Look at the road. Just bring yourself directly in that present moment, and then ask yourself, how the story that's going on in my head, is it true? Is what I'm thinking about really going to happen? Is this a fact? And usually like 90% of the time, obviously it's not a fact. And you start changing the story in your head, or I do, and I say, I'm safe. Everything's fine. Right now, I'm in my car driving and everything's good. So a big part of bringing yourself back into balance is recognizing those physical symptoms, which might be shaking, your heart might be pounding, you might break out in hives, or you might have that pit in your stomach. And that is a signal for you to stop and listen to your body and your mind.
I love that. I really love that. So what I took from that is when we are out of being present and we're kind of just in this chaos, it's really one recognizing like, how am I feeling? Because we know we have those triggers. That's why our body responds. We feel anxious, tight, tense, uncomfortable. And that's our first sign. And then you recommended that we look at what are we saying in our head. And then you recommended that we go into like our senses. So it's almost like, okay, I know I'm in chaos. So how do I become present? It's recognizing through all my senses, like you talked about touching the steering wheel or looking at something, and it's looking at the trees and recognizing beautiful leaves, and that's shifting your focus. And then you mentioned when you shift your focus, it's almost like, now let me replay that story. Let me retrain that thought so that I'm on a different track. Is that correct? Am I kind of on the right path?
Yeah. You did a great job of summarizing.
Awesome. I love it. And that makes a lot of sense. I think where, especially during COVID, where people might struggle is really like they kind of feel stuck inside their homes, right? And so is there any recommendation for resources or ways, and I know that you're talking about the senses, but you know, especially like, what are you doing like when you're stuck at home? And you know, we love to dance, we love to go out, we love to be social, but when we're stuck, or when we're in that fear mode and that anxious mode and we can't get out of it, and we're in the house, do you have some recommendations that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now when we're in the house, some of us, like myself, I'm a single mom, I am in the house with 2 kids, homeschooling, right? They're not back in school. So doing the distance learning and working from home has been a challenge. So I'm not going to lie. Of course, stress and anxiety comes into play. Are they getting good grades? Are they turning in their assignments? They say they're turning in their assignments, but are they really? You know, I think a lot of us can relate to that right now. So what I ask myself, if I find myself getting irritated or getting that feeling that's coming up when it's related to life situations, is this going to matter tomorrow? Ask my question. And if the answer is yes, okay, is it going to matter next week? And if the answer is yes, okay, is it going to matter next month? And sometimes it usually goes to no, and then drop it. I'm done. I don't need to put my energy and time and mindset on that. I want to concentrate on the things that I can control. And that is a huge tool to use when having depression or anxiety, is because right now we feel out of control, especially if you're watching the news and, you know, everything else is going on. So what we can control is what we eat, who we talk to. I encourage my clients to make a list of the things that you can control. You can control, you know, calling a friend, calling somebody that's supportive. When you're in this place, you don't want to be calling somebody that's going to commiserate with you and start saying, oh yeah, you're right, it sucks, this is horrible. Yeah. No, don't do that. Yeah. Find somebody that's positive, that you can talk about, you know, something joyful. Focus on your hobbies, paint. There's so many things that you can do inside your house, and we are allowed to leave our house. So nature is a huge benefit. And one of my instant favorites, if you're having a meltdown, panic attack, it sounds strange, but it works. Take off your shoes and go outside and stand in the grass. It is called grounding, and it works immediately. You can do it for 5 minutes, deep breath, and it recenters you. It doesn't only recenter you because of the energetics from the energy you're getting from the ground, which is scientifically proven. I know I'm woo-woo, but it has some science behind it. But the other thing is changing your environment. I learned with therapy with my daughter when she was younger and she would throw fits, the ABA therapist would say, change the environment, have her go outside, anything to remove yourself from that situation. It tricks your mind to go, oh, whoa, what's going on? I need to pay more attention.
Yeah.
So it's these just little tricks that you can do in that spot, because if you're at that spot where you're having that anxiety and your brain is going a mile a minute and you start feeding it, your brain and your body is like, my heart's pounding, something must be wrong. And if your thoughts feed into that, it's going to escalate and it's going to go into a full-blown panic attack. So if I feel my heart racing all of a sudden for no reason, which is a panic attack, I just tell myself, wow, you're excited. That's great. Something must be good be going on. So when I start talking to myself and reframing that it's a positive thing that's going on in my body, it stops. It doesn't escalate. So that's something that's really important to understand.
And when you say reframing, are you referring to like reframing your thoughts? So you're going from a negative control-based thought to a more just joyful, focused thought? It's not about being like woo happy, but it's about just like, how can I see this differently? Is that what you mean by reframe?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just not asking somebody that's full of anxiety and depression at the moment, and you tell them to go, woo, just say your mantras, just say your affirmations. They're going to probably say, F you. So I'm not asking that big step. What I'm asking is to trick your brain. And what is happening in your body during an anxiety or panic attack is real, but it can be, your brain can be tricked and be like, it's okay. I know I've gone to the doctor. My heart's great. I've had my checkup. I'm 100% healthy. I'm not having a heart attack. Everything's great. I'm just excited. What am I excited about? And just changing the mindset of what's going on in your body. And you can make up any story that you want when that's going on.
Wow, that's amazing. I love it. So just to kind of summarize what you mentioned about, being in COVID and being stuck. And I think one of the biggest things that you said was the piece to control, because the scariest thing with COVID is we feel really out of control, and we feel like not only, am I going to get sick if I'm going out, but then I'm stuck in this space and I can't even, like, what can I control? And I really love the piece to even changing your environment, because working from home, like, there are days I work in my office, I work downstairs, I have another office up here in like the corner. Sometimes I work in my bed, and sometimes I work at the kitchen counter, and it's just, I'm constantly like moving around, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was constantly changing my environment, and I didn't hate what I was doing. Like I you just get stuck in this like discomfort. And I know some people may not, I'm divorced, and my kids are here only part-time, so I do have a little bit more flexibility, even though they are homeschooling. But even finding just a couple different places that you can shift back and forth. I love the grounding piece of, and I've heard that before. I don't know that I've ever actually done it, but that makes a lot of sense, is like getting yourself out of the shoes and the disconnection from earth, and just really planting your feet and connecting with the earth. And I've heard too, I love the neuroscientist Andrew Huberman from Stanford, and he studies neuroplasticity in the brain. And he talked about the importance of sunlight, and even just getting 10 minutes of sunlight first thing in the morning can really impact your thought process. So even like adding things like that, I'm sure that's a form of grounding. It's just maybe he didn't describe it that way. And talking to supportive people, and not finding that pessimist or that person that fuels the distaste and the discomfort going on in your head, but somebody who kind of shifts you out of that thought process. And incorporating your hobbies, even, how you were saying getting in nature. I know that you enjoy hiking, and so probably that's a way that you're able to get into nature and support your hobbies, because I know you like to stay physically active. I love that. And even eating, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how does food affect us in our levels of anxiety in our training? Are we trying to like feed that anxiety, and like what is happening there?
Well, I find that a couple things happen with food, which is unique, is that a lot of people eat, and I know I'm speaking from myself as well, this was my experience. I was 100 pounds overweight, and it's one of the things with my transformation that I've been able to take it off and keep it off. But it was doing something. It was providing a padding around me that was making me feel more secure and comfortable out in public. I know it sounds strange. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. So I had that extra weight on as a form of protection. And that helped, I thought, helped with my anxiety, but it didn't, because the not getting the proper nutrition feeds into the anxiety. But emotional eating is a huge deal when it comes to anxiety. It gives me comfort when I used to do it. And the proper nutrition, if you're sitting there binging on sugar and caffeine, that is going to, especially caffeine, is going to really rev up your adrenal glands, and you're going to be hypersensitive. And with anxiety, you're already hypersensitive. You're already looking at everything, and you're in fear and flight mode. You're what's going to go wrong next. So adding caffeine on top of that is like gasoline on a fire, right? So I still have my coffee. I have my 1 cup in the morning, sometimes 2, but I have to really watch it. The other thing is sugar. You eat that sugar to get that dopamine hit, because it's instant pleasure, but then you drop, and you have that empty feeling, that tired, lethargic feeling, and that's not going to really help you when you get those negative thoughts, because if you're already tired and lethargic and feel like crap, it's harder to think of positive things to say to yourself. So that's another effect. And then alcohol plays into it. I've chosen not to drink anymore, going on 2 years of not drinking. And for those that don't want to quit drinking, they just need to be aware that the effects of alcohol on the body is that it will cause anxiety and depression the next day. And that's just what it does. It messes with the synapses and the connections in your brain and the dopamine level. So that's a natural thing that you're going to feel the next day. So that's just something to be aware of. And don't take it on, because if you drink and then the next day you feel so depressed and full of anxiety, and you start thinking, what's wrong with me? Well, it's not you, it's the wine that you had last night, or whatever, the cocktails. So just be aware and not place blame on yourself when it's an outside force. Because I find, with people with anxiety, they take everything on. They're sensitive, great people, right? They care. So that's why we have so much anxiety. And the other thing is, if you eat those fruits and vegetables and that protein, it's going to make you feel great. And the better you feel, it's easier to combat any mindset issues you may have.
So it sounds like food and the nutritional components that we incorporate in our lives, they're affecting us on a chemical and hormonal level that we are not necessarily aware of if we're not educated about it. And then we're trying to improve our anxiety level and just be more focused and stop controlling and thinking better thoughts and just, being more present. But we're through our nutritional choices, we're inhibiting that ability, because we're feeding our body chemicals that are causing imbalance. And so as you spoke to balance earlier, it's just another component that supports balance or causes imbalance. And so we need to be conscious of the nutritional choices and the beverages that we're choosing to consume daily. That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really thought about that as far as from an anxiety standpoint. I mean, I haven't personally ever struggled a lot with anxiety. I have struggled with like depression and a lot of like self-acceptance issues and stuff like that. But I used food, and I was a compulsive eater and exerciser and all those things. But you know, I've never had a panic attack, but I have witnessed people that are beginning to go through that. And I haven't really understood how to, like, you know, work them through that, because it's not something I've dealt with. So it's really so valuable. You know, all the information that you've shared, I mean, it's really coming down to, you know, recognizing where our thought process is and what our body is telling us and what we're feeding into our body on a daily basis. And when we get into this funk of trying to control and feeling anxious, you recommend that we step into our senses, recognize and be present enough to appreciate what's in front of us, touching things and just shifting our focus, and you know, surrounding ourselves with the appropriate people and environments that support us. And yeah, I think that, and you know, incorporating hobbies and things that make us happy and joyful. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yay. And I just want to dive a little bit more into your story, because I feel like we kind of breezed through it, but it really is powerful. I mean, Heather, what was it that your anxiety affected so many areas of your life? Can you dive into that further? Because I just summarized it briefly in the intro, but tell us every component that it affected your anxiety.
So my anxiety affected every aspect of my life. I always had social anxiety, so every time I left the house, I mean, there was times that I would not leave my house for a couple of days. I couldn't even go to the grocery store because the anxiety was so bad that I didn't want to go to the grocery store. So I'd always go a few days of, no, I'm not going to go to the store today. It would be like forcing myself to go out and, you know, drive my kids to school and then have to leave my car to drive them or to walk them to the door. And I had to force myself to go out, constantly worried about how I looked. If I didn't feel I looked good enough to go out in public, that would cause an additional level of anxiety, which I'm happy to report I no longer feel that way. I can go everywhere with no makeup. I'm fine. I don't wear pajamas outside. I draw the line there.
That's your threshold. Okay.
That's my level. No pajamas, no slippers, not doing that. But I do go out without makeup now.
That's our next podcast.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if I had company come over to my house had to look perfect. Everything had to be in its place, or I was a raging I was a raging bitch when people were gonna come over. Not to them when they arrived, but to anyone that was in the household. Oh, we got to have this clean. Like, you know, everything has to be perfect. The house has to look like it hasn't been lived in like 6 months. And so I would hyper focus on those things, cause anxiety, break out in hives. So it affected when I had guests over. So you know what that did is I didn't have guests that often. Like, I don't know, probably 1 or twice a year, unless they're a really close friend. Play dates, it affected play dates for my kids. And it affected me chasing after my dreams, because me being on camera right now would have never happened before. I had severe anxiety about speaking in public, and I would break out in hives and shake and stutter, and my heart would pound out of my chest that I thought I couldn't breathe. So that aspect as well, it affected dating. You know, I got divorced, I left a bad marriage, and going out and dating, that was huge anxiety, meeting, you know, different people. And now it's a great experience to meet wonderful men. I've met one now, so check that box. But yeah, every aspect it affects.
And we even spoke about your weight, and you were 100 pounds heavier, right?
Yeah. So I was 100 pounds heavier. That was my journey on the weight loss started after my son was born. I was 240. Then he's 12 years old. So immediately with Weight Watchers, I did lose 60 of the pounds. And then I kept that last 40 on. It was kind of a comfort thing for me. I mean, I was never happy with where I was at, and I longed to lose that extra weight, but I kept it on just, like a padding from me and the outside world. And changing my mindset and getting rid of the anxiety gave me the ability to go to new exercise classes, to try Pilates, to try hot yoga, to do things that would make me totally uncomfortable. Do jazzercise, which I always went the other way. I went that way. And Zumba and all those things. So, people understand that when you have anxiety, it affects every aspect of your life. When I was married, going to his work events and always second guessing, am I going to say the right thing? And yeah, so it's a huge gift not to have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you a funny story, because it came up. I started smiling when you said I've never had a panic attack before. And I started smiling because of this story. And I thought, lucky you, because you literally think you're having a heart attack. It's no joke. It mimics a heart attack. You have chest pain, you have the deep breath. It's bad. So I was doing, I don't know if you're saying this. I'll say it anyways. Okay, so I was doing this video. Oh, we're gonna laugh. I was just getting back into shape, and it was literally for people, it was grouping for oldies, and it was for people that were over 70 years old. So it was a very low impact workout.
Okay.
Chairs are involved. This is just so you know how low impact it is. So I'm doing this low impact, and all of a sudden my heart starts pounding, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I have chest pain, and then the pain is going down my left arm. I'm like, oh my God, this is what they said the heart attacks are like your one arm goes numb, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm thinking I'm gonna have a heart attack. And I was alone in the house, and I work from home, and it's embarrassing to admit, but I hadn't showered in a couple of days, so I wasn't like looking my best, right? And I called 911. I called my mom, and she lives out of state, and she's like, you gotta call 911 because the pain and of course the firefighters come and they take me out. And I think I had like 6 gorgeous firefighters around me, and I hadn't showered in 2 days. And I was like, oh my God, that's the worst thing you want when you're a single woman. Right. Is to not look your best when the firefighters come. Firemen, I should say, firemen. Good. So I did go to the emergency room, and they did all the tests, and they said it was a panic attack. And that was the first time I did not know that a panic attack can mimic a heart attack. Wow. That's how severe it is. So that's when I got put on medication for it. And those medications are rough. You can't live a vibrant, full life on Valium or it's not Zantac, but what's the other word? The other one that so I was on Valium or the other muscle relaxer mood type. So you're a zombie. You're tired. You can't live life, and that's the cure for anxiety, panic attacks for them, is to medicate you. Wow. And to make you dull, and so you don't get to feel the highs of life, and you're not excited to be around your kids or around anywhere. So for me, that's not the way to live life. So to find a way to live without panic attacks and anxiety through nutrition and mindset and lifestyle changes is a huge blessing. It really is. And I found that in my line of work, it was a common thread through every one-on-one client that I had, is they had some level of anxiety, whether it be with their job or kids or relationships. And when they overcame that, they were achieving those goals that they needed to reach. They were getting job promotions. They were doubling their sales. They met the love of their life. Huge things happen when you take that component out.
Yeah. Wow. So are you like ready to, 911, are you good now? Like, you feel ready? Those hot fire brothers? That is funny.
That always,
scary
that always pops in my head now.
That's
like if there, I'm like, I better shower because if an emergency is about to happen.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it does still pop in my head to this day because it was a horrific experience.
Wow, we're in the mid-panic attack, but it'll probably increase your anxiety levels. Like, oh my gosh, and now I'm smelling, I've been working out, That's funny. Wow, well, thank you so much, Heather. I mean, it's amazing to see, how powerful anxiety really how much it really affects your life in every aspect. And it's not necessarily a hard process to change. It sounds like you just really have to have, a guidance system and the steps to implement this change and be consistent enough with it for long-term success. And it sounds like, not only do you have the experience, but firsthand, but you've been able to help your clients do that. And I think that's really amazing. I did want to just ask one more question. If you had one, just one recommendation, one single tip that you would like to share with the audience in the scope of anxiety and reinventing themselves in life, what would that number one tip be that you'd like to share?
The number one tip, so for like an emergency situation or to get over anxiety altogether, or what?
Just how about if I'm just, how about I'm just feeling really, really anxious and I call you, what is the number one thing you're going to tell me to do?
I'm going to tell you it's easier it depends. If you're talking to me one-on-one, then what I'm going to tell you is, what are you thinking right now? What is the story going on in your head? And if they're not talking to a person, they can do this journaling. Grab a piece of paper and ask yourself, what are you telling yourself right now? Okay. It could be you're telling yourself that everyone's going to get COVID and my kids are never going to go back to school and we're going to be stuck in my house forever. And then, so you break that apart. Is it true that everyone in the world is going to get COVID? You don't know that. That's a no, because it's not true. In this current situation, it's not true. Are your kids going to be home forever in the house with you? No, they'll grow up. They'll leave. But they'll leave sooner than that. So you just go and you dissect your thoughts. You dissect your thoughts, and you just keep asking yourself, you're a detective. Is this true? Is this true? And if the answer is no, let it go. And then what is your reality? Then you're going to fill it back in. So you're going to dissect what your thoughts are. You're going to prove them wrong. And then you're going to fill them with new thoughts. And the new thoughts are, right now I'm inside my house. I have a roof over my head. I have food in my refrigerator. Everything's good. I'm under no danger. Nothing is going wrong right now. I'm perfectly safe. Sometimes your anxiety is at such a level that you can't do that. You don't have your mental capacity with you. So then I teach my clients breathing techniques. So then we go straight into breathing, or workout. This is one of a quick tip for social anxiety and for those people that are dating out there. If you have an event that you're really anxious about, you go and you do a super hard workout so your heart is racing. Because what that's going to do is you do your super hard workout, then you shower because you don't want to be stinky, do your event or do whatever you're going to do, and your body will start, your anxiety will start, right? And your heart will start racing, but your brain will be like, wait a minute, I was just working out and my heart was racing and I was getting endorphins. So this is a good thing that my heart's racing now in this moment. So that is an easy trick to trick your brain into thinking the symptoms of anxiety are normal and a good thing.
That's wonderful. I love the degree of, you know, if it's kind of more surface, you can write it out and you reframe and rethink and restructure your thought process. And if it's at a deeper level, there's breathing techniques, and that's something that you offer to your clients and teaching them that process of working out, things like that. I absolutely love it. Heather, I cannot thank you enough. I think you've provided so much value to those who really struggle with anxiety and trying to reinvent themselves around this area of life. And is there any location or spots that they can find you and learn more about what you offer and you teach?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me. I'm the owner of Beyond Better Life. I'm on Instagram at Beyond Better Life. My website is beyondbetterlife.com. I'm on Facebook, of course, Beyond Better Life.
Awesome. And I'll provide links and everything for them to be able to look at you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And I do provide anybody out there that wants a 30-minute free clarity call, just contact me and we can see if I can be your guide on the side and help you out.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate it. This was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.